Hello, my dear friends. I hope you're all doing well, and welcome back to Storyline English Chapters. Today's story is about a queen who lived and ruled more than 2,000 years ago. A remarkable woman who reportedly spoke nearly a dozen languages, studied science and philosophy, and once had herself smuggled into a palace, rolled up inside a carpet, just to meet one of the most powerful men in the world. Her name was Cleopatra. Stay with me until the end, because her story is filled with love, power, danger, ambition, and one of the most daring entrances in history. Cleopatra was born in 69 BC in Alexandria, Egypt, a magnificent city by the sea, filled with towering buildings, one of the ancient world's greatest libraries, and scholars and artists drawn from across the known world. Her family wasn't originally Egyptian at all. They were Greek, descendants of one of Alexander the Great's generals, who had ruled Egypt for roughly 3 centuries by the time Cleopatra was born. Her father was King Ptolemy XII. Within her family, siblings sometimes married each other to keep royal power concentrated, a tradition that, understandably, bred constant rivalry. Brothers turned against brothers, sisters against sisters, everyone hungry for the throne. As a child, Cleopatra was unusually devoted to learning. She mastered Greek, of course, but also Egyptian, a rare choice, since most of her family considered it beneath them to bother learning the language of the people they ruled. Cleopatra wanted to actually speak to her subjects, to earn their genuine loyalty. She studied mathematics, science, philosophy, and music, and reportedly worked her way through the great library of Alexandria itself, endlessly curious about how the world worked. Many considered her one of the sharpest minds in the entire palace. But intelligence alone couldn't fix Egypt's biggest problem: Rome. Roman power was expanding rapidly across the Mediterranean, and everyone, everywhere, had grown wary of it. Egypt was wealthy, but militarily weak. Cleopatra's father tried to stay on Rome's good side through gifts and payments, but the Romans mocked him privately, nicknaming him the flute player for his fondness of music over politics. When Cleopatra was 18 in 51 BC, her father died, and she became queen, though by tradition she had to share the throne with her 10-year-old brother, Ptolemy XIII. At first, the arrangement functioned smoothly enough, but real power clearly rested with Cleopatra. She made the decisions, met foreign dignitaries, and controlled the treasury. Her brother's advisors resented this deeply. They wanted a young, controllable king, not an assertive, independent queen, and began quietly turning public opinion against her, accusing her of grasping for too much power and disrespecting tradition. Within 3 years, they succeeded in forcing her out of Egypt entirely. At just 21, Cleopatra fled to Syria, having lost her kingdom. She didn't stay defeated for long. In Syria, she began raising money, gathering soldiers, and building alliances, determined to reclaim her throne by force if necessary. Around this time, a Roman general named Julius Caesar arrived in Egypt, chasing his rival, Pompey, who had fled there expecting protection. Instead, Ptolemy's advisors had Pompey killed, assuming it would please Caesar. It didn't. Caesar found the killing dishonorable and settled into the royal palace in Alexandria, deeply displeased. Cleopatra recognized her opportunity immediately. If she could win Caesar's support, she might reclaim her crown. But her brother's forces controlled the city, and simply walking through the gates would have gotten her killed. So she devised a now legendary plan. A small boat delivered a large, rolled-up carpet to the palace as a gift for Caesar. When it was unrolled in his chambers, Cleopatra stepped out from inside it. Caesar, by most accounts, was equal parts startled and thoroughly impressed by her audacity. The two grew close very quickly. Whether out of genuine affection, mutual political advantage, or some combination of both, historians still debate. Caesar backed Cleopatra's claim to the throne, insisting she rule alongside her brother as tradition required. Ptolemy's advisors refused to accept it, triggering a brief but dangerous war that trapped Cleopatra and Caesar inside the palace, defended by a small Roman garrison against a much larger Egyptian force. At one point, ships were set ablaze in the harbor, and the fire reportedly spread to nearby warehouses. Some accounts claim scrolls from the famed library were lost in the chaos. Roman reinforcements eventually arrived and crushed the opposing army. Young Ptolemy XIII drowned attempting to flee across the Nile. With her rivals defeated, Cleopatra was secured as queen once more. She and Caesar spent time together traveling the Nile, and she later gave birth to a son she named Caesarion, Little Caesar, claiming Caesar as the father. She eventually traveled to Rome with the boy, staying in Caesar's private villa, a visit that unsettled many Romans deeply uncomfortable with a foreign queen wielding this kind of influence. Then, in 44 BC, Julius Caesar was assassinated by a group of Roman senators who feared he intended to crown himself king. Cleopatra, still in Rome at the time, fled quickly back to Egypt with her son, uncertain what would come next.
Rome plunged into a fresh power struggle. Among the men vying for control was Mark Antony, a general and close ally of Caesar's. Antony and another rising figure, Octavian, jointly defeated Caesar's assassins and divided Roman territory between them. Octavian took the west, Antony the east. Needing funding for his military campaigns, Antony summoned Cleopatra to meet him in the city of Tarsus. She arrived, according to legend, aboard an extravagant ship with purple sails and silver oars, dressed to appear almost divine. Antony was captivated. As with Caesar before him, the relationship that followed blended real affection with clear political necessity. Antony needed Egypt's wealth, Cleopatra needed Rome's protection. Together they had 3 children, twins, a boy and a girl, followed later by a second son. Back in Rome, Octavian used this relationship against Antony, portraying him publicly as a man who had abandoned Rome for a foreign queen, and painting Cleopatra as a dangerous outside influence angling for control over Roman affairs. Public opinion in Rome slowly turned against them both. In 31 BC, the conflict reached its climax at the Battle of Actium, a massive naval engagement. Partway through the fighting, Cleopatra's ships unexpectedly withdrew from the battle, and Antony followed her, abandoning much of his own fleet, a move that left many of his remaining soldiers feeling betrayed, and many ultimately surrendered to Octavian. The two retreated to Egypt, scrambling for allies as Octavian's forces closed in. None came. A year later, Octavian's army reached Egypt itself. After a small failed skirmish, Antony received a false report that Cleopatra had died, and in his grief he stabbed himself. He was brought to her, still alive, and died in her arms once he realized the rumor had been wrong. Octavian captured Cleopatra shortly after, treating her courteously, but keeping her, unmistakably, a prisoner. She understood exactly what awaited her, being paraded through Rome as a captured trophy, a public humiliation no queen of her stature could accept. On August 12th, 30 BC, Cleopatra died at 39 years old, traditionally said to be from the bite of a venomous snake, though some historians argue poison is equally plausible. The precise cause remains unconfirmed, but by every account she chose the terms of her own death rather than surrender that choice to Octavian. With her death, Egypt's independence ended entirely. It became a province of the Roman Empire, and Cleopatra is remembered as its final pharaoh. No native Egyptian ruler would govern the country again for centuries. More than 2,000 years later, Cleopatra is still remembered, not simply for her beauty, but for her intellect, her linguistic skill, her scientific curiosity, and her sheer refusal to yield in an era almost entirely dominated by powerful men. She wasn't flawless. Many of her choices were shaped as much by political survival as by principle, and history still debates how much of her legacy was strategy versus genuine conviction. But she fought relentlessly to keep her country independent for as long as she possibly could. There's something worth carrying from her story into your own English learning journey, too. Just as Cleopatra studied language after language to connect with different peoples and secure her place in a changing world, every new English word you learn is opening a door, connecting you a little further to the wider world around you. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video. Leave a comment telling me what part of Cleopatra's life surprised you most, and subscribe to Storyline English Chapters for more true stories that help you grow and improve your English while you're at it. Thank you for watching, my friends. Until next time, keep learning, keep listening, and keep enjoying this beautiful journey of discovery.